Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are y'all this beautiful Sunday morning? Hi, Deborah. Hi, Adana. I'm drinking ginger and lemon tea. All right, so let's start the ball rolling. Hi, Elliot. I haven't spoken to you in a while. Hi.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. We got
Greetings.
some, we
Yeah,
got
you
some
need
mushroom
some
light.
light. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am well, thank you. I could do with a little bit more sleep,
All
but
of us, all of
right?
us.
But you know where you have your work to do and to be on your purpose, you gotta just, push a little harder. Where the boys? They're out and about.
Nah, they with their mother.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It,
All
it,
right.
it would be low if they were here.
I, I I've heard them in action and they're true boy children,
Yes,
which I love. Thank you for coming on Sacred Conversations and spending some time with me this morning.
of course.
Um, we've known each other for a long time. Um,
I was thinking that this morning.
yeah, a long time.
Very
And,
long
and,
time.
and in certain circumstances, some weird connections.
Mm-hmm.
But but it is what it is. And
Yep.
I've worked with your dad, um, Archie Miller, on the productions here in New York. And so I'm familiar with your energy and where you come from, and that's a good space to be in, right? So for all of us who's joining us this morning, thank you for coming on. Every Sunday I'm on here at 10 o'clock talking with somebody. I never talk. Well, I've dedicated the last Sunday of the month to kind of let it just be me and my audience, right? And we just hang out and chit chat a little bit. But Negus, thank you for joining us.
No
I
problem.
thought it was important to invite you on because um, during my readings with various people, it always comes up about ways to channel different energy, right? And one of the ways that the ancestors, obviously we know who speaks through me, they talk about writing, and documenting your dreams, documenting your feelings, documenting things that are happening around you, documenting your spiritual experiences. And for me, I always tell folks, because they worry about how do you start, how do you get things flowing, how do you get things moving. And one of the things I tell them to do is just write. Just start writing. Don't worry about the grammar. Don't worry about how it sounds to you. Just write. Just put your feelings on a paper, and you can leave it or you can and come back to it and read it again, right? But writing, I know for me, I've tried many years to keep a journal, many, many years. And I'm never able to stick with it. So I always say, well, maybe that's not something for me. But as I've grown spiritually, one of the things I've had to do is to write down various rituals that would come to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I have to document certain things.
Right.
Um, and so for me, what I wanted you on here, and we're going to get into what you do, but to explain to folks how they can start the process of documenting what's inside, how to put those words to paper, And maybe I can start by asking you, how do you come up with your brilliant pieces? I mean, I've listened to You Can't Shackle Me, Picture Perfect, Young Boy, Caribbean Queen, which comes from your line of greeting cards, which I want to get into, which is an amazing thing I think you've done, and I want to see more of it. But how do you get these thoughts onto paper? What is your personal process?
Yes. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful way to start off the dialogue.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm a Gemini. I'm born on the last. I'm on the last day of Gemini. I'm a June 20th
Uh-huh.
born. So I'm an air sign.
Okay.
So me personally, when I write, I don't write forcefully. I don't say I gotta sit down and write something down. I really write when I'm being moved or something happens to me or something that I witness, something that really, really shifts my whole being of thought, my whole being of feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and words just start flowing. Right? It could be one word, it could be a whole 2 pages one time, it could be, a half a page, and I'll just
Mm-hmm.
document it. I may put it down and come back to it, but
Mm-hmm.
I would feel something, and then words would just start coming to me and start in certain combinations and certain rhythmic patterns, and
Mm-hmm.
I would just start writing. When I
Mm-hmm.
first started writing, um, well, ironically, as you said, mentioned my father, Archie Miller. I grew up. There's a bloodline of scribing in my family, right? My father
Nice.
my father's a Calypsonian, soca artist. I see my father writing and performing all my life. So indirectly, that was kind of ingrained into me because
Mm-hmm.
when I was young, I always played around with words. I always did this weird thing. I still unsure how it came to me. Now I would hear a word and then I would attempt to rewrite the word with the vowels in order. So say for instance, a word such as scribe. I
Mm-hmm.
will rewrite the word SCREBI. I would just always want to see how I can manipulate words,
Okay.
how I could restructure them, how I could play around with them.
Mm-hmm.
And all throughout school, I wrote poems and wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I had all type of lyrics and words for the girls in school. I mean, so it was inadvertent, but it wasn't until like my last year of college I actually sat down and started to really write poetry, like
Mm-hmm.
seriously. Taking it
Mm-hmm.
seriously, taking the whole journey of releasing and letting out emotions and documenting
Mm-hmm.
feeling and documenting and having a proper understanding of how powerful words can be.
Right.
So just like you said, it starts off with writing that first word.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as easy as watching the news
Mm-hmm.
and seeing a story that may move you or or maybe surprising to you or just putting your own spin on it or just explaining how you saw it or how you felt it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
that's what we as poets or as writers are. We're basically reporters.
Right.
We document what it is that we see or what it is that we feel or what it is that we hope to see or feel or what we
Mm-hmm.
expect to see or feel or what
Mm-hmm.
we have come across.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the beauty of it.
Right. Why do you think poetry chose you? Because I think as beings, when we are on our purpose, it is not necessarily that we chose something, or I think what happens is it's placed in our lap, right? And it's
Yes.
up to us whether we take up that mantle or that purpose and do what we have to do with it for ourselves and those, whether it's our community or those around us. Why do you think that poetry chose you?
I'm unsure. Like I say, I
That's a
feel that
good
it is.
answer. That's an
Yeah,
honest answer. Yeah.
yeah. I feel now today. I feel that it was a bloodline thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that, like I said, my father, the writer,
Mm-hmm.
Calypsonian, soca artist,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt that gene, that trait, was
Mm-hmm.
passed down to me,
Right.
and you know, and because growing up, I had friends who rap. I had other friends who did other things with words. And I always admired them. I'm saying, I can never do this. You know, I can never really sit down and structure this or go in front of a stage and let my words move people. But it wasn't until I noticed that I had the ability and power in myself to do it also. I said, well, I could do this. You know, so one, obviously it takes courage, but actually knowing what you have inside of you.
Right.
Sometimes,
Wow.
sometimes it takes an experience to happen, right? I've met many poets who, like myself, started writing poetry from a relationship they were in, right? Whether it be a breakup, whether it be a domestic violence relationship, it could be something they missed out on, right? It's majority of the time it's something that is a shift. A shift happens and occurs, and that's how a lot of people start to write. 'Cause they realize that they have all these things inside of them, and they want to find a way to let it out. Right? They don't want to physically hurt somebody or physically hurt themselves. So they find ways. There's a
Wow.
lot of people when they go through certain things, whether it be a breakup, whatever it is, they go listen to certain types of music because those type of artists are poets as well too. Right? Sometimes I feel that there's this misconception that poets are people who only, such as Langston Hughes or Maya Angelou, but I look at Marcus Garvey as a poet as well too. Right? Malcolm X is a poet to me as well too.
Right.
People who use their words to uplift and create shift and change. All poetry has to be uplifting, but people who use their words to make people move, to make things move, make things shift and change. A politician could be a poet, right? I feel Barack Obama was a poet. You know, he used his words to get where he needed to get to. You know, obviously rappers are poets, musicians are singers are poets, but they don't majority of the time label it as poetry, but that's what it is.
Have you ever tried any other form of writing, like erotic stories? In fact, I have an erotic blog, right? And that just came to my head. I need to share that with you.
Yes, please. Let
I
me
will
check it
share
out.
that with you. And then I
Let me
know
check
in
it
my
out.
DMs, like Simone was the link, but I haven't written in it in a long time. And someone asked me, well, why haven't you? Someone asked me about it recently. I said, well, maybe because my love life is not as hot as it used to be back then when I was writing. But and someone mentioned to me the other day that I really need to get back to it. We have Warm Gem. She just posted people who use their words to make things shift and change. I guess she's, give you a thumbs up for what you just stated.
Yes, thank you.
And then someone here is lighting up the whole page with the Bajan flag. Yes, he
Yeah,
comes from Barbados.
that's my brother. That's my good friend Dwayne, man. Me and him went to school together.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, what's going on, Dwayne?
I in your bio, you mentioned tapping into your experience growing up in a Barbadian household in America to write your pieces.
Mm-hmm.
How is it for you as a Black man, a Black American man, being raised in a Barbadian household? And I am sure, like, at times being in that household, you're trying to figure out, wait, am I in America? Am I in Barbados? Like, it just felt like I'm assuming two different experiences. What was that like for you? And since you said that you've mentioned tapping into that experience, when you tap into that experience, how does it come out in your writing?
Yeah, great. Another great question. So, majority of my poetry is highly inspired by Calypso.
Wow.
Um, yeah, if you actually read it,
Mm-hmm.
it's highly inspired by Calypso. A lot of my double entendres and high metaphors and the
Mm-hmm.
sexual innuendos, I grew
Mm-hmm.
up with that era of Calypso, with
Mm-hmm.
the song
Excuse me.
is attempting to portray something, but we all really know and mean it and mean something else.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my poetry contains that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my poetry has very subtle sexual hints and innuendos into it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it's inspired from. But being born in Brooklyn, both my parents are from Barbados. My mother's from St. Joseph's. My father's from Christchurch. Um, I didn't really realize that I was really in America until I actually moved to New Jersey. I moved out of Brooklyn because at that time period in Flatbush, Brooklyn, it was a mini Caribbean. Right, everybody was
Right.
Caribbean. You ask someone in Flatbush, Brooklyn, you ask them where they're from. They don't say they're from Flatbush. They will say, I'm from Trinidad, I'm from Barbados, I'm from Grenada. They would say where, how they migrated to Brooklyn, right? That was the thing when I was growing up. So, and my parents always told me that I was Bajan, right? It wasn't a thing where
Wow.
like, yeah, it wasn't a thing where like, oh, you born here, you American. No, my parents always said, you come from us. This is the culture that we're showing you, exposing, teaching you to. That's what you are, right? And me going to Barbados basically every summer from my first birthday till I was about a teenager, kind of solidified that for me. So it was a bit different for me. And also, like I said, my father was a Calypsonian and soca artist. So my father would take me to the studio. My father would take me to his shows. My father at a young age would have me around Griner, Gabby, the legends, right? The people who I thought that were just regular people, and not knowing that they're legends, Trevor Eastman. I even got an old picture with Allison Hines when she was part of Scream, like we first started Scream, I was a little boy. I kind of saw these people, Blood, and to me, it was like, it was normal, right? I didn't really realize that I wasn't, I was separate. But until I moved to New Jersey, where the Caribbean culture was not as prominent as it was in Brooklyn. That's when I noticed the difference.
Right. Right. I want to get back into the writing process and you writing pieces for your greeting card line. And that would kind of bring me to writing affirmations and writing with intent. Am I going the right way?
Yeah, I see.
How can you help to guide someone to start that process? Like, would you tell them, like, create a space of peace? Maybe they light a candle or burn some incense, or like, how would you advise someone who feels like they have a set of words inside of them and is having difficulty releasing that information?
So, yeah, that's another great question here too. So, everyone is different, right?
Right.
So, I was, I would recommend for them to go and create a space that is both comfortable for them and uncomfortable for them, and see what comes out, right? So if someone likes to be in quiet spaces, I would say, like similar to what you said, put dim light, candles, sage the room, create something that is peaceful for you, but then also go into a place that's very loud, that's chaotic. See how you can write in that environment, or see what comes out in that environment, right? Because I say I'm a Gemini, so I deal with duality. I like to see how the spectrums operate, right?
I'm very well aware, Geminis.
So I would say to see what best information comes out of you in those environments.
Right.
And also I highly give this as a suggestion as well too. But I've learned this along my writing journey, especially if people writing to an essential or a loving manner, right? Do your best to tap into the senses, right? Because
Yes.
I've learned that in order to have a woman fully open and activated, you have to activate their senses.
Right.
Smell, touch, feeling, hearing, all of them senses have to be activated to really, truly, fully open up a woman, right? It's like portals.
Right.
And when we're speaking about writing, right, when you put words together on paper, you call that what? Spelling, correct? So you're casting your spell when you're writing.
Look at you
You know what I'm saying?
on a Sunday morning. I
You're
love
casting your spell.
it.
You're casting your spell. So, and in ancient Egypt, right, in the time period called Kemet, at that time period, they had this thing called Heka. Heka meant word magic. Right? So people who had the ability to create word magic were labeled as gods. Right? People, supreme beings, because they had the ability to make things and people move from their words. And when you write something down and you add the voice to it, right? I believe in the Bible it says it was first with the word. The word was first, correct?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Those lines, yeah.
And you, when you breathe life into something, it's activated.
Right.
Right. There's even studies where when you speak positive words or positive affirmations to plants, they grow a certain way. Right. And it's similar to children. Right? You speak certain words, certain tones. They react a certain way. Even if you speak into water, right, again, going into elements. Right? When you speak into water, it ripples a certain way.
Correct.
So the voice.
I learned that. I learned that water piece in my early days with with my spirituality, when I was having a moment, a spiritual moment, and my spiritual mother had to come and service me, and she had someone bring her a glass of water, and she prayed over it. I think she prayed over it. And she put it in front of me, and she said to me, Sister Simone, you pray over that. And I would pray over it, and I had to drink the entire water. And I remember at the time just feeling a sense of calm, right? And that, because what happens is she, as my spiritual leader and my spiritual mother, she put in her intent, I put in my intent, and I took it in. That's why it's important, you pay attention to who your teachers are. So we have a few statements here. We have Andre saying, should we feel wrong for sharing our affirmations? Should we only see them as private? What's your thoughts on that?
I would say that's a personal choice.
Yeah.
For me. You can I've learned from my father as well too. In order to love something, you have to let it go. And this is what the beauty of being an artist is, right? You're doing something, you're loving something, you're creating something, and you're sharing it with the world. Right? I feel personally that artists should be some of the most highly compensated people on the planet. Because they go through all these experiences and they are courageous and vulnerable enough to express it to the world. Right. And it helps people with multitude of things. Right. Like you listen to a lot of early Mary J. Blige, a lot of her music.
Yeah.
A lot of women identify with that music. Right. But many women who listen to it probably were not courageous enough to tell those type of stories. But Mary was. And because of that, she was able to affect and uplift and heal and inspire so many women.
That's why it's always said when it goes public that she's going through something emotional. Like most of these artists, their followers come out and say, well, we know we get a good album coming next.
Yes.
That's where that energy comes from. When their private lives become public, then their followers like, let's hold on. An amazing album is coming, and we always get it. We always get it. Yeah, so you're right about that. We have Worm Gem. She came back and she said she wouldn't even have thought about going somewhere loud, where you describe about going in a space that makes you uncomfortable, that can also help you to create. That was pretty profound. We have another question here. Hold on. Oh, well, she's going to my next point. chick she be. Where do y'all get these IG names from? Anyhow, I think you mentioned he is self-published. How difficult is self-publishing instead of finding one? That was one of my questions for you, actually.
Ah,
Yeah. What is the process of you publishing your own pieces?
um, the process is much easier. Obviously, it's you're independent, so you control everything you want to do with it. All you basically have to do is, if unless you can do it all your own, find a graphic designer to put your cover together. Find someone to format it the way you want it to be structured. You can easily now just go on to an online publishing company,
Mm-hmm.
right, and purchase the ISBN number, and that's it. Put it up, and it's yours.
Right.
Rather than you sell it, rather than you giving up your words, your visions, whatever it is, to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
and they may not release it, or they may not release
Mm-hmm.
it the way you want to release it. You know, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I have a thing personally with control and my words,
Right.
which is one of the reasons why I created my own greeting card line. Because
Yes.
I felt that my words were more potent. I felt that my words are more impactful than the words that were that are in these cards nowadays.
Right. I didn't realize you were doing that until I read your bio, and I was like, well, where can we find your books and your greeting cards?
hmm Yeah, I'll put it in the chat too. But my on my website,
Mm-hmm.
adeyemiartistry.com,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ADEYEMIARTISTRY.com.
Mm-hmm.
But they're
I'm going to
also on
post all of once I
yeah.
repost the final interview here. I'm going to put all that information in there, but it's still good
Mhm.
for you to share it with them. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So why greeting cards? And before we finish, if you could remember the words, because I don't want to put you on the spot in case you have to go somewhere and get them. I want you to do the piece Caribbean Queen. So I'm going to leave some time for you to do that one for me because that's my favorite one.
Oh
But
man.
why greeting cards?
Um, the whole story of me creating Great Card Line, one, this I guess is about 3 years ago. Um, me, I don't personally celebrate Valentine's Day,
Mm-hmm.
but I do believe in um giving a celebration of love to someone on a day that's celebrated. You know, still the
Mm-hmm.
day. Give someone you love, let them know that you love them.
Yeah.
And I was in the store. And I was attempting to buy a Valentine's Day card for my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and all these cards were terrible. I mean, the words, and I'm just there saying like, why am I forcing myself to
Mm-hmm.
buy a card with words that do not identify how I feel, where I come from? And I said, I'm a writer. I could write something better than this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. That my first card I wrote was a Valentine's Day card, and then I wrote it. People started buying it. I said, well, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
the next major holiday at that time was Mother's Day. So I said, all
Mm-hmm.
right, let me see if I can write a Mother's Day card. I wrote a Mother's Day card, and people bought that too. And Father's
Nice.
Day. And then and I was like, okay. So now I just started. It just started accumulating from there.
Nice. We need to get you in some of the stores because I've seen some of them and they're amazing pieces.
hmm
And for those who can't, I always try to find a card and I just blank that forces me to write how I actually feel about the person that I'm giving the card to. And I lived in
hmm
a household with a gentleman and we used to mail cards to each other. Yeah, we lived in the same house. And either I will go and pick up the mail or he will go and pick up the mail and there's this card. And it's either I sent a card to him or he sent a card to me. But that was another lifetime. Anyhow.
Uh-huh.
So how are you serving? I know you're very community oriented. You're always in the community doing stuff. I want you to talk about the work you're doing in the community via your writing. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Like I said, the writing is not only therapeutic, but I feel that it is something that everyone can do and everyone
Mm-hmm.
should do.
Mm-hmm.
So for a time period, um, I was through a good friend of mine, a poet friend of mine by the name of Messiah Ram Kassoum. Um, he was able to get my program inside Rikers Island to work with young men that were incarcerated.
Wow.
Right. So so when I first started my business, the intent of my business was to have my books out there, right? And then it grew from there. It grew to this opportunity
Mm-hmm.
where I was able to go in and work with young men to help them learn how to not only learn how to write, but to augment their level of writing, to assist in their expression,
Mm-hmm.
to sharpen the ones who do like to write, sharpen their writing ability and skills and thought processes, and give them multitude of different ways of thinking to better their writing. And I felt that that was such a life changing experience for me
Mm-hmm.
because I realized how much it helped. You know, especially you dealing with people who are in confinement,
Yeah.
right? They're in confinement. They are away from physically touching the opposite gender.
Mm-hmm.
They are away from family. They are away
Mm-hmm.
from so much.
Mm-hmm.
And through this ability of writing, they can connect to so much,
Mm-hmm.
right? They can visualize. They can be creative. I just saw that as I'm like, wow, you know, every time I came into the you know the cells, the where they were at, they all love me to come through. You know, from the
Mm-hmm.
toughest person
Mm-hmm.
to worst persons that I'm not gonna write, I don't want to write. They would come sit down next to me and
Yeah.
just listen, right? They would want to, you know, and then they would probably sneak next week and slip me something that they wrote, right?
Nice.
So I realized how powerful and impactful writing is, and how it should be something, an outlet for our youth, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel that people glorify and love the art of rapping, right?
Yes.
Which is also a form of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes I feel that sometimes as elders or some who are a little bit older than youth, they are upset at the type of words youth use or the type of stories. Um, so I feel that me personally, I feel that I have no problem with that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because they are writing for what they see, what they experience,
Mm-hmm.
all right, what they have access to. Now, it is our jobs to increase their palette, right? Increase as similar to what a great inspirational poet for me, Saul Williams, he once sat down and said that,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. I remember
our
Saul.
diet, yeah, our diet is more than what we just eat, right?
Yeah.
What we consume is what we watch, what we listen to,
Mm-hmm.
what we read. All these things feed us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if our youth are only exposed to the news and seeing images of themselves being portrayed a certain way, or going out and seeing law enforcement harassing them, or going in school and having teachers telling them that they won't be nothing, you know, that is how they're processing these things, right? Or going outside and seeing the only way they can accrue monetary wealth is through selling drugs or causing violence to their own community, then that is what they're going to speak about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only vantage point that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give the youth more than that, right? What I like to do is I like to show them. I go backwards to go forwards, right? I will
Right.
show them their history. I will
Mm-hmm.
explain and express to them their history upon where they came from. How did you get go from that to where you are today?
Right.
What happened? What transpired? Right?
Yeah.
How can you shift to go back to the greatness that you came from?
Yeah. Yeah. I fully get that because many years ago I worked in East New York um, at this center for at-risk youth. And we had um, kids in there between the ages of 16 to 21 who couldn't just make it in high school. And you could imagine that the majority of the boys wanted to be rappers, right? And one day I don't know if you know the poet Roger Bonner. He's from
Yeah,
Trinidad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I performed with him last year at the Barbados, no, not the Brooklyn Caribbean Festival. He was
Yes.
one of the hosts. Yeah, phenomenal
Yeah.
poet.
Yeah.
Phenomenal
Amazing.
poet.
So I had him visit and sit with these boys. And he left. I remember afterwards we were talking. He said, Simone, there's so much in there. Like, what happened? Because one of the guys brought him this poem by Stalin or something like that. He's like, these kids know these poets. Like, this is why are they here? He was so moved by the experience of the ability of these kids to write. Yeah, in between the grammar was a little off, but you were able to get the full understanding of what they were trying to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question here from Kevin Clark. Greetings to you, Kevin. What are your thoughts on writing versus typing in the age of electronics? Is there a little more power in pen and paper, or the medium doesn't really matter? That's a good question, Kevin.
Yeah, that's a great question. Right? From one Kevin to the next.
So what?
Yeah, I mean, there obviously is still a certain power in connecting your hand from your pencil and paper, pencil or pen down to paper, right, scribing it. But I myself, a lot of the poems I write nowadays are in my phone, right?
Really?
Because I have the words here or the idea, and I don't want to lose it before I have access to a pen and paper or whatever it is. So I could be driving, I could be in the train, I could be playing with my sons, I could be doing whatever it is, and I have my phone on me. I gotta write this thing down before I lose it or forget it, or this idea. So sometimes all of us may not have the ability to have paper or a pen and pencil all the time. So that's one of the beauties of using technology, right? Because technology is to be used. Right? Yeah. Technology is a great thing to transpire, and wow, technology today is Ogun worship day. So technology all comes together.
Right.
And we're using technology.
Yeah. That's something I'm going to have to take into consideration too when I'm doing my readings, and it comes up that folks need to express themselves. Because usually I tell folks they need to write down their dreams as soon as they get up and it's fresh in their head. Have a book by, their bed so they can write down the information. Or I would tell them to have a book, on them in their bag, or when they're traveling, if something pops up, they write it down. But I think my mindset needs to get to them using their phone, right? But I guess that stems from, with the energies that I walk with, is the whole energy of actually putting the pen or the pencil to paper. Yeah. Even in certain rituals, when you're writing your intent on whether it is, what's that paper? I can't remember the name of the paper, but it's a kind of waxy paper. I can't remember the name of it now. Or you use brown paper. Most spiritualists would tell you to write with a pencil versus writing with a pen, right? Because everything is I guess, is all nature bound, right? So you're connecting parchment paper. That's it. Thank you.
There you go.
Someone just typed it in. Parchment paper. That is it. But I don't use parchment paper because that's not what was given to me to use. I use brown paper. So whatever it is the spirit moves you to use, that's what you use, right? But with going back to Kevin's question, as a spiritualist, for me and not for everybody else, when I'm doing my work and I have to write a letter to whomever, the ancestors, to God, to the Orishas, I write using brown paper and I use a pencil. But that's just my thing. That's what I've been told to use. As someone is here, Divine Beauty Within is now reminding me that growing up in the Caribbean, when you just, like in this season now, in September, heading into school, your parents would spend a whole evening covering your school books in that brown paper.
Yes.
You see how things always come back,
Yeah.
and we go back to what we used to do at some point. That was a good reminder.
Hmm.
Do you believe, okay, in this time we're in now, whatever we calling it, a reset, a redo, a turnover, upside
Yeah.
down, how important is writing as a coping mechanism?
Mm. Extremely.
Yeah.
Extremely. I feel that monetarily, many of us may not have the ability to
Mm-hmm.
go out and look for counseling,
Yeah.
right? Or acquire professional counseling.
Yeah.
Um, the easiest way is to get out what you have inside of you yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go inside, you go within to get out or
Mm-hmm.
get what you gotta get to,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I feel it's extremely important, especially for the teens. I've been activate, I've been not activating, advocating
Mm-hmm.
for politicians and teachers and schools to have my programs in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel that just look at what's going on in Brooklyn this summer,
Yeah.
Brooklyn, Bronx, wherever's going on, all this
Yeah.
violence, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if all these young people had an outlet to express what is going on in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
right? Imagine if they had a avenue for them to verbally let out the pain or whatever it is, trauma,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is they're experiencing and going on, let it
Mm-hmm.
out rather than
Mm-hmm.
them harming themselves, harming someone who looks just like them.
Mm-hmm.
Give them opportunity to let out what they're feeling. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you, if you put it down next to the person that they may have a problem with or issue with, they'll probably have the same story,
Yeah.
right? So why not have them express it together and communicate it? To say, look, man, this is how you felt, this is what you went through. Oh, this is the reason why you have an issue with me, but it's really you have an issue with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you get to solve a lot of problems when you write.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I reflect upon my younger years as well, where I had an issue when I was in high school. I had an issue with this young man. Um, I was a freshman in high school. He was a senior, right?
Mm.
He was a bully, right? He was a big, strong man, bully. And I was I was a tough rebel. I mean, I wasn't letting nobody put their hands on me. So one time I I had the intent of taking this man's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went to school that day with the largest knife I found in my kitchen, and
Mm-hmm.
I had the mindset. I said that as soon as he looks at me, this is gonna be the last person he looks at.
Wow.
And I knew where he hung out at. So I walked past him slowly. The man did not look at me, and
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of like a divine shift to me.
Intervention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And once and later on in life, I found out, right, that this man is also a Gemini, but he also um has gone through the pain of not having a father in his life, right? So I acquired better understanding
Mm-hmm.
of the why he used to want to inflict pain upon people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, like that whole story, it kind of haunts me still to this day,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps me realize that I have a purpose in letting out emotions, so
Mm-hmm.
things don't go to that level. But also I have an obligation now because I think that's the other reason why I feel I have a lot of compassion for these young men who are incarcerated because I could have easily been one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that we have to give these young people outlets. We have to give everyone's not going to play basketball. Everyone's not going to play football. Everyone's not going to want to be to use their physical prowess to let out their aggression or let out their feelings. Right? Some
Mm-hmm.
of us want to use our brain. Some of us want to use our emotions. Some of us want to let out all the different avenues as possible
Mm-hmm.
to let out how we're feeling. Like people fail to realize that we have gone through centuries of trauma
Yeah.
without any assistance, without any
Yeah.
counseling, without any assistance,
Mm-hmm.
and expect us to come out years later perfect. right?
Mhm.
We're still processing all this trauma from centuries ago. We're
Right.
still processing it,
Yeah.
right? Some of us process it through music, some of us process it through painting, whatever it is, but we're still processing it.
Hmm.
And there are not enough outlets for our youth to learn how to process these emotions, these things that are going on, that's affecting them,
Yeah.
right? How can we expect our youth to do good and be good if they're
Hmm.
hurting? Right?
Hmm.
That's like asking somebody to focus on the test when they're hungry.
Right. Right.
I'm thinking about my belly first.
Correct.
On my,
Yeah.
you know, it's impossible.
Yeah. All right. So we have a lot of chat going on here. So let's not, I mean, I still have a whole set of questions for you.
No problem.
Um,
I ready. I ready.
yeah. um, Divine Beauty Within is saying sometimes it's hard to write my issues. My hand doesn't match up with the speed of my thoughts. And Worm Gem responded and said that's exactly her problem as well. Any suggestions on how they can manage that?
Yeah. So they're saying that their brain is moving faster than their hand can
That they
travel.
had. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Got you. Okay. So one suggestion is to verbalize it.
Mm-hmm,
Again, use technology again. You have your phone, record it.
mm-hmm,
What's going on in your brain, speak it. And then you can write it down if you need to.
mm-hmm.
Right? You use the tools around you as an advantage. Right?
Yes.
Use whatever you have. As the old saying, if you don't have this, you write that. You know,
Right.
don't have donkey, you write,
Right, right horse.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Use what you have. Use what you
Yeah.
have. But if it's in there, it has to come out.
It has to come out.
Similar
Mm-hmm,
to with food, right?
mm-hmm,
Sometimes if not sometimes, but if food stays in your body for too long,
mm-hmm,
it then becomes toxic.
mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing too with certain feelings, emotions. If they don't come out, you know, they may be a hindrance to you. It might cause harm to you or the person that you're with, person around you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have to let these things out. You have to let these things out.
Yeah.
You don't know who it can help. You don't know who it can heal. You don't know who it can inspire. A lot of my poetry, sometimes I look back on it and say, man, like I was being very vulnerable at this point in time.
Mm-hmm,
And sometimes I would say I don't want to put that in the book or I don't want to expose it, but then I would say,
mm-hmm,
somebody's going through this. Somebody is experiencing this.
mm-hmm.
Someone may not experience it yet, or but they're going to experience it soon, and now they have some sort of tool or some sort of experience that can assist them.
Mm-hmm. That thought process brings me back to a conversation that comes up all the time when people post certain things on social media, right? And at one time, you would have people come down and say, "Why you posting this thing? You exposing yourself?" And I was one of these people like will call on the same like, "Yo, what's going on? Relax, Let me talk about take that off of social media. Don't worry." And then I had a light bulb moment. If this is the way at that particular time this person needs to express themselves, go for it, right? Go for it. Because it is better that you do it that way than in a different way which you will harm yourself or harm somebody else, right? And I too have had to, at the moment when someone is hurting me and causing me harm,
Hmm.
I put it out there. I'm like, I remember at one point I was going through some stuff and it was getting feedback from all these different individuals who know nothing about what I'm going through or what I'm dealing with and create their own narrative, right?
Right.
And I was an inch away from calling their names out. And I also have a friend of mine, I won't call her name, although I know she wouldn't care. She exposed her abuser
Mm.
online, where he lived. And then another friend of mine, she tagged her name to it and said she got permission from the girl to state this gentleman abused her as well. and they called out, you know, who he was, where he lived. And then it was just this constant conversation of folks saying, yes, they've heard the story about this person, this had happened to them. And it just became, I was sitting, you know, reading this thing like, these women had this happen to them at a young age. And Facebook is now giving them the opportunity to speak of their experience. And that blew me away. And I realized, you know what, when someone needs to speak, allow them to do so. Allow them to say what they say. And another thing that happened too on Facebook, this girl spoke about her miscarriage, of losing her baby. And she wrote, he would have been, or she would have been at the age. And she encouraged other women to write about, you know, how old the child would be. This comment thing went to like 100 and something comments, where women were saying, oh, she would have been 13 today, or she would have been 14 last. And some of them had the exact day that it would have been the kid's birthday. So I appreciate this conversation and you guiding folks as to how to express themselves and to use words to release whatever is going on inside. Right? So let's go back to the audience. Dandy Dukes is saying, sometimes hurt people hurt people. And Kevin Clark responded to that by saying, if you don't heal, you will always bleed on people who didn't cut you. That's very profound.
Yeah.
Andre Hoyt comes and he says it's hard to verbalize it, so I think we bottle it and internalize it more, which is true. I want to talk a little bit about Adeyemi Artistry. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes. Adeyemi
Yes.
Artistry. Look. Brown.
So you know I have to get a t-shirt. Small, please. Thank you. Why did you create this business?
Okay. First I'm gonna give you the history of the name.
Yes.
Right? So many who know me or have known me for a very long time know that my birth name is Kevin Miller.
Right.
I decided to change my name to Negus Adeyemi. Right? At the time period, my journey, right? I was a Rasta for like 11 years, and I was learning Amharic, right, language spoken in Ethiopia, and I was looking for this word, something. I was like, is a shift coming to me? A name is coming to me, and I know that everyone uses this Ras this, Ras that, this and that. It's pronounced Ras, right? So I said, I don't want to be like everybody else. I'm not that sort of person. So I looked at myself. I was going through I felt a regal shift.
Right.
I look at myself as a king. I look up the word. What is king in Amharic?
Right.
It is Negus, right? So that's how the first part of the name came about. At the time period, I was living next door to a Nigerian brother. His name was Sunday. He's still living. His name is Sunday Adeyemi. And I asked him, I said, what does Adeyemi mean? Because that name is going through it's vibrating so well through my core. I need to know what it means. And he said, Adeyemi means the crown fits me well. I said, that is it. That is it. So both parts of my name are regal, right? From the Amharic to the Yoruba. And that kind of shifted my whole journey as well too, from going from a Rasta to the Ifa Yoruba spiritual system, right? So I always want to show the history of my name and the journey that I have. So that's how I came about. But then the business now, another good friend of mine, brother by the name of Sahu, he was telling me, look, Negus, you have the ability and power of your words as a profound poet. You do this, do that. You should create a business. I'm like, business? What do you mean you create a business? I don't know about no poets having no businesses and that kind of thing. He was like, no, start it. Start thinking of names now. And took me about a week. had names going through this and that, and it just came to me. Adeyemi Artistry, because with that, it's no limit to the type of art that I can create under this roots here. If I just said Adeyemi Poetry, it would just limit me to poetry. Right? What if I wanted to create a movie? What if I wanted to create a theater play? What if I wanted to create a soundtrack? Whatever it is, we use art in a way that helps people, right? So that's how the name came about, Adeyemi Artistry.
Nice. So we are now at 10:54, right?
Wow.
So yeah,
Already?
who already, right? And IG has this slick way of giving you like a minute or two before they cut you off. But what I want to do is, do you have time for us to just go over like another 15 minutes or so?
I'm good.
Yeah. And this is the first time I'm doing that, because usually at an hour I'm like, okay, well, we gotta go now. But there's an energy that's rolling here, and I just got whispered, let it continue. So as you know, I'm obedient.
Yes, please.
I had enough licks from being disobedient. So what I'm going to do is, we're now at 10:55. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the live. I'm going to save it and post it. And then I'm going to come back. So all of you who are on now, just don't freak out. We're going to come back because we got a whole ton of questions still to ask. In fact, one of them is here. Let me write this one down because we might lose it. Does he need read people's work or help you? Okay, so let's end this, and I'll come back out in 2 minutes, and then you rejoin me, and everybody else, please come back. Grab your water, grab your tea, and because I have a set more questions to get into. All right, so we'll be right back. I'll see you in a few.
All right.
All right, cool.